We've been talking about the Father's house, and we opened up with this new series talking about Jesus is going away to prepare a place for us, a place that is really designed uniquely for you, but he's also preparing you for that place. Thank you. And as he prepares this place and prepares us for this place, he starts to guide us in the preparation. He lets us know that he left a trail for us, that to get to where God wants us to be, that we're going to have to suffer. We're going to have to deal with some rejection. We're going to have to lose some expectations and some of our dreams, because there's a price to pay to get to that place that he has for us. He began to talk to us about the Father's house being a house of prayer. Started reminding us that if we're not careful, if we don't enter into this place of prayer, we're going to fall into temptation. And the temptation is to do things our way, do things the way we think they should be done, and to be guided by our emotions and what we're seeing and not really what God's plan is. And really the only way to get there is we have to have some prayer and alone time with God to keep us in that focus. And then we had an awesome word last week about pillars. You start thinking about the importance of pillars and how they anchor foundations, and they build communities. And he talked about how he's going to write his name in our hearts and give us a unique assignment, a new destination for our hearts. But it's really about us getting to that place where we really know him. And then by knowing him, he can literally plant us in places, and we can be the foundations. And God really wants us to be pillars. But today I want to talk to you about a place for you in the Father's house. There are too many people who feel excluded. They feel like they don't belong. They feel like they don't have a place in the Father's house. Amen. The word of the Lord today is challenging us to really understand that for each and every one of you and each and every one of them, whoever you think them is, there is a place for them in the Father's house. If you look at 1 Samuel 16, it says in verse 11, "And Samuel said unto Jesse, Are here all thy children?" It's an interesting question. Are here all your children? Jesse said, There remaineth the youngest, and behold, he keepeth the sheep. And Samuel said unto Jesse, Send and fetch him, for we will not sit down until he comes hither. I hope you're hearing what God is saying. This passage is when the prophet Samuel comes to Jesse's house, and he has an assignment from God to go anoint the next king. And he comes there, and Jesse gets his sons, and he gets his most likely to succeed son and brings him forward. And the most likely to succeed son wasn't the one. And he brings another son, and he wasn't the one. And God had to tell the prophet, would you stop looking at the way they look from the outside? I don't look at outside stuff. I look at inside stuff. Stop wasting your time imagining what he should or should be. Hear what God is saying to us. And then they brought all the sons, 7 of them, before him, and every one of them was not him. Yeah, there was room for them, but we're missing somebody. The prophet had to ask him, are these all your kids? Did you forget somebody? How do you forget one of your own kids? Jesse remembers. There remaineth the youngest. You know, in that culture, the youngest was really the lowest on the totem pole. You were the least of all priorities. You weren't significant. You had a declining area of focus and attention. And God is calling, are all your children here? I'm looking for the one that you don't think has value. I'm looking for the one who all of their life has been told that you're not significant. Where is he? Are all your children here? And then he realizes and he begins to tell him, he says, well, the youngest, he's the one that we let go keep sheep. He's not the one that's getting ready to take over the family business. He's not being groomed for anything. We just let him go take care of the livestock. Go out there where nobody watches you and you're just out there playing with some sheep. Take an insignificant job. No one celebrates the sheep herders. But I think you don't understand. God doesn't waste anything. His preparation in obscurity is what prepared him for his greatest public demonstration. If you think the things that you do when no one is watching are not important, you got it wrong. You got it wrong. You can only know God in those places where there is no crowd. This is easy. It's those places where no one sees you. That's where you really know who God is. The reason everybody was afraid of Goliath and David wasn't, everything in their lives, every soldier at that time had faced a challenge based on their own strength and their own ability. And now they looked at a man that was bigger than all of them. They had no more ability to fight a Goliath. But the sheepherder did. Why? Because what he did in private, nobody was there when he was facing the lion and the bear. It was just him and God and the lion and the bear. And because he knew his God delivered him from a lion and a bear, he with great confidence could stand in front of all of Israel and say, I don't care about the money. I don't care about who gets to marry the king's daughter. That stuff is great, but I know God. And he was the one that delivered me from the lion and the bear. And because he delivered me from the lion and the bear, this uncircumcised Philistine is going to be just the same. I'm not shook by Goliath. The thing that I saw God do in private, he's going to do it in front of all of you right now. There is something about when you prepare in private, when people don't see you. And then Samuel gives them the instruction. And this is our instruction today. He says, send and fetch him, for we will not sit down until he comes hither. We are not going to rest. We are not going to go at ease. We're not going to play this off until you get that son in this house. There is room for him in the house. It isn't just for Eliab. It isn't just for the good-looking one. It isn't just for the one that you thought was the most likely to see. It's for all of them. Go get the youngest one. Get him in here. We will not sit down until he comes here. Send and fetch him is not wait till he comes home. Wait till he decides it's time to come. You go get him. Hear what God is saying to his church. I don't know who the ruddy one is. I don't know who the insignificant one is. I don't know who you think doesn't belong. Who you think is okay that they're an outcast. But the prophet said, go get him. We will not rest till he comes. Maybe you're that. Maybe you feel like that. You feel like the insignificant one. I don't know. Maybe you've created some insignificant ones. But there's room for us in this house. Send and fetch them. Bring them here. We will not rest until he comes. Jesus had another situation where he had to face a crowd of people to go find the one that those people didn't think belonged. We look in Luke chapter 19. We want to go through from verse 1 to 10, and I just want to walk you through this publican. It says in Luke chapter 19, verse 1, it says, Jesus entered and passed through Jericho. And behold, there was a man named Zacchaeus, which was chief among the publicans, and he was rich. Now, you got to understand who these publicans were. They were the people who were in charge of collecting taxes, the Roman taxes. See, the Roman government would basically outsource tax collection to these people. And they would go and they would collect the taxes for Rome, but then they also realized they had a lot of power. So they began to use this power for evil. They began to extort people. They began to take advantage of people. They began to be able to put false accusations and get people to basically pay bribes to keep them out of trouble. Could you just imagine if the IRS said, listen, we're not going to be a government agency anymore. We're just going to let somebody, just random people, they can go out and just say, hey, listen, instead of the 28% tax bracket, I think you should be in the 42% tax bracket. And you know what? I'm going to only give 22 to the government. I'm going to keep the rest for myself. And there's nothing that you can do about it. There is no appeal. There is no, perhaps I can get a good attorney or a good tax accountant, and we can go back and we can settle things up. These were the most despised people because they even did it to their own people. They were sellouts. They were those people that took advantage of their own and used it for their own gain. And so here was this guy named Zacchaeus who was this chief amongst the publicans. In other words, he had a bunch of publicans working for him. It was a good multi-level marketing scheme. He was near the top, and he had his crew, and he was doing his thing. And it says in verse 3, it says that, and he sought to see Jesus for who he was, but he could not for the press because he was little in stature. So we heard that Zacchaeus was rich, we heard he was a publican, and we heard he was short in stature. So there's really three things that if you think about who the Zacchaeus person really represents. He represents the wealthy. In other words, he says, I've gotten all this stuff on my might, and I've got stuff, so I'm good. He's got stuff. But he has another problem. He's despised. You know, he may have stuff. He may be able to ride nice. He might be able to dress nice, go to the best places because he's got the money. But everywhere he goes, they're like, oh, it's him. They're scared. They don't want to be around him. He's despised. He's not invited to the Christmas parties and the Thanksgiving Day, and he's not invited to the barbecues. He's a despised person. And then the hard part is he's also insecure. No offense to anyone, but you know, right? The Bible says he was short in stature. So you know all his life he was little Z and Mighty Mike, little guy, last guy picked. You know, all that kind of stuff when you're the little guy. You know, a little bit more fiery, always trying to prove himself. Had this negative image because I was little in stature. I was wealthy, I was despised, insecure, and all those things produced a desperation in this man because he sought to see who Jesus was. He was willing to go above and beyond. I need to go see this Jesus. And it says in verse 4, it says, and he ran before and climbed into a sycamore tree to see him, for he was to pass that way. He identified the route that Jesus was going to go. He saw where he might be, and he says, I've got to go meet him. I got to go meet this Jesus. And it says in verse 5, and when Jesus came to that place, he looked up, he saw him, and said unto Zacchaeus, make haste and come down, for today I must abide at thy house. The person that everyone despised, the one that everyone says, there's no way Jesus would ever hang out with that guy. Jesus meets him at the place. He looks for him. And not only does he invite, he says, make haste. This is the moment. This is the moment. Make haste. Come on. Let's go. Today I have to abide. He doesn't say, I would like to abide. He says, I must abide at thy house. What is he telling us? There is this divine appointment that Jesus has with the most unlikely people. And it's an urgency because he desires a relationship. Coming to his house represented an intimate relationship. And it represented I'm bringing you in and I'm coming into where you are. You don't have to pretend for me, Zacchaeus. I'm coming to your house. I know I'm going to see the stuff that you've done. I already know who you are. I'm not making a pre-qualification that you're not eligible or you're not good enough for me to come to your house because of what you do, because of your tax bracket, because of all the stuff that I've heard about you. I'm coming to you. Zacchaeus, there's room for you in this house. And it says in verse 6, he says, and he made haste and he came down and he received him joyfully. In other words, Zacchaeus obeyed. He heard what God said. He felt the unctioning of God, and he said, I'm coming. And he says he received him joyfully. In other words, Zacchaeus saw this opportunity. He knew he was desperate. He knew he wanted something different. I don't care what everybody was saying about me. I need to find this Jesus. And I finally get the moment when I meet him, and he's here, and he says he wants to come to my house, and he gleefully runs and joyfully meets him. And it's like, yes. And then what happens? The church folk in verse 7 show up. In verse 7, the church folk say, and when they saw it, they all murmured. Maybe that's a Freudian slip. They murmured, saying that he is gone to be guest with a man that is a sinner. He's going to be with that dude? He didn't call us. He didn't say, yo, Kurt, let me go to your house. Don't you serve in the church? Aren't you a good guy? Don't you do good stuff? You got a respectable job. You do good things in the community. He doesn't ask for that time. He says, no, I'm going to his house. And you would think folks would be a little happy, like, yes, maybe this will turn Zacchaeus' life around. See, we have to fight this exclusionary closed club mentality about the kingdom of God. We do. And it's hard because we don't even realize that we do it most of the times. See, this is going to mess you up. How much of the blood of Jesus did it take to get you born again? See, some of us think we only needed a teaspoon. Some think we needed a tablespoon, a pint, a quart, a gallon. I needed the whole tub. I know, just me. I know, it's all good. But the reality is this. We have these qualifications that he's too far gone to be saved, right? He's too far gone to be rescued. Why waste your time with that one? What is it about human nature that makes us want to exclude people? What is it? You know, I was at this workshop not too long ago at work, and it really started helping me think about things a little differently. Because we were talking about diversity, right? And they started changing the conversation from diversity to inclusion. And I said, that's it. Because we got to stop worrying about getting different people together, and we got to just say, we got to get everybody in. See, inclusion is about bringing everybody in. And that really is what God is asking us to do. Can you extend my house of God to everyone? There's room for everyone in the house. I know. You're afraid if you bring them into the house, right? They ain't gonna act like they did out of the house. That's what you're afraid of? All right, well, let's see what happens. Let's look at verse 8. It says, and Zacchaeus stood and said unto the Lord, behold, Lord, half of my goods I give to the poor. And if, and I know I have, taken anything from any man by false accusation, I will restore to him fourfold. We want transformation before you come in. God says transformation will never happen without relationship. See, you can't even come into 12 Heath Drive and know how to operate in 12 Heath Drive until you're in 12 Heath Drive, right? If you don't walk in my house, you don't know whether we take off our shoes at the door, whether we jump on the couch, you know, you don't know that stuff until you come in the house. Once you're in the house, then we can help you, right? So in some deep terms, there's salvation and sanctification. And what we're trying to do is we try to get sanctification before salvation. We say, I need you to do this, act like this, do this, and then you can be born again. And Jesus said, no. How about you get born again and let me work out your soul salvation daily? Let me get you there step by step. And see, what happens is, because Zacchaeus was invited, because Jesus extended himself and extended him into the house without a pre-qualification, once he extended that relationship, it broke down the barriers. We know Zacchaeus had stole from people. The nature of his job said that he did that. And he was chief of the publicans, so he was good at it. He didn't need anybody to tell him he's a crook. He needed somebody to come connect with him. That way he could confess it out. And what happens is, as he built that relationship, as Jesus said, welcome, come, I'll come to you. Zacchaeus confessed and said, listen, I'm giving half my stuff back to the poor. Because I took 3/4 of it from the poor, right? And if I stole anything, and I know I did, I'm going to give it to him fourfold. That's why I can only give half to the poor, because I got to have something else to get the fourfold back to the other people. His transformation was happening right in front of our eyes. Right in front of our eyes. And the reality is, that is what God wants. Because his transformation was not to make Zacchaeus the best of the chief of the publicans. It was to restore to the poor and to those that have been robbed. Your transformation is not about you. It's not about me being, oh, look at me, I'm Curtis, ooh. No, it's about God has a plan and an assignment for Curtis. So transform yourself so I can put you in those places so you can reach those people. Listen, there are people that only you can reach. There are assignments that only you can do. What are you waiting for? Is it because you don't think you belong in the house? Or is it because you don't think they belong in the house? There's room for all of us in the house. There's a room for each and every one of you. And the sooner we get to that place where we understand that God's love extends beyond anything that we can see or imagine. You can't fathom God's love. Don't try, you can't. If you struggle, think about yourself. Think about, regardless of what you did 37 seconds ago, God says, I love you. He demonstrates it over and over in his word, constantly, so people can get a glimpse of how he feels about getting people back into his house, back into his relationship. He says in the great parable of the prodigal son, which is really the story of the father's love. No matter what this young man did, all the vile stuff he did, the father was constantly looking for him to come back. And when he came back messy and dirty, he didn't say, clean yourself up, boy, before you get in this house. He just grabbed him and kissed him. He took him on with his dirty self. He brought him in, and then he began the transformation process. He didn't say, stay over there and make restitution. Make it right with your brother because you messed up all. No, he just brought him in. Family, we got to hear God's heart. We got to hear God's heart. There is a cry. This Father's House series is not just about us. It's about the next level of extension. I want you to see it in this video clip. This video clip is from a movie, it's called Rudy. And it really shows a young man's struggle trying to be somewhere and that he really aspired to be, but just really wasn't qualified to be there. He wanted to be a football player at Notre Dame. He didn't belong. He didn't have the size, the skill, he didn't have any of that stuff. But he had this unique opportunity where he got invited in. And in the clip that you're about to see, it was towards the end of his time at Notre Dame. And literally, if he did not get to dress for one game, it's like he was never there. And he was so frustrated because he was not going to be able to dress that he said, you know what, I'm done. But then somebody talked to him and said, listen, don't quit. Just hang in there. Hang in there. Finish what you started. Let's watch this clip.
Ready, Irish!
Yeah. Oh, hi, Roland. Come in.
I want Rudy to dress in my place, Coach. He deserves it.
Don't be ridiculous. Georgia Tech is one of the top offensive teams in the country. You're an All-American and our captain. Act like it.
I believe I am.
Me too, Coach. I want Rudy to dress in my place. Coach, this is for Rudy. This is for Rudy, Coach.
I promise, this is the real thing. I'm gonna be on the sidelines, in uniform. Frank, I've never asked you for anything in my life. Promise me he'll be on that bus tomorrow. Frank, I want you to be there too. Please.
Family, today's message, there's a place for you in the Father's house. It's about each of us realizing God is calling you in. There's no pre-qualifications. He's calling you in. And now that he's called you in, he's telling you, go extend and call in your brothers and sisters. Make room for them. Make a place for them. Welcome them in. I don't know who those people are that you don't think belong in the house. I don't know who your Rudies are, who the unlikely ones are. But you do. You know God put them on your heart. So now you got to go out there and extend. Go out there and reach. Go out there and bring them in. Because today is that day. This is that shift. We've been working on ourselves, getting ourselves together. And you're never going to stop doing that. But you got to be able to reach as you climb. You got to be able to do both. And God really wants us to do both. He doesn't care about the house in terms of what it looks like, the physical property. He really cares about the relationships for all of his kids. Let's welcome them in.